No one made Jack Elam hate him more than him. Jack Elam was born William Scott. Jack Elam was born in Miami, Arizona on November 13, 1920. Elam had a hard start to his life. His mother died when he was a boy, which was very sad. After that, he was raised by family members and moved to California, where he went to high school and then Santa Monica Junior College. His formative years were marked by a strong work ethic and an unwavering drive to get through tough times. Elam's eye always wanders because of an accident he had as a child. This would become a trademark of his on-screen image. At first, this physical trait was seen as a disadvantage, but it ended up becoming one of his most recognized traits, giving the bad guys he would play a scary, unpredictable quality. Before becoming an actress full-time, Elam had a number of jobs, such as being an accountant and an inspector for the Samuel Goldwyn Studios. He didn't come into Hollywood in the usual way. He used his business sense and contacts in the business world to trade for small jobs, moving from working behind the scenes to being in front of the camera over time. In the late 1940s, Elam started working in movies. But it wasn't until the 1950s that he got bigger parts, especially in westerns, which were at their height at that time. His goofy smile, wild eyes, and gruff voice made him a natural for roles as criminals, gunmen, and dishonest sheriffs. He was great as a bad guy in movies like Rawhide, 1951, High Noon, 1952, The Far Country, 1954, and Once Upon a Time in the West, 1968. He gave even the scariest characters depth and a unique charm. Although Elam often played scary parts, he was known in the business for having a great sense of humor and being friendly when he wasn't on camera. But Elam wasn't just good at being a bad guy. Elam changed along with the Western genre. In the 1970s and 1980s, he made a smooth and endearing switch to more comedic parts, showing that he had great timing and was self-aware. Elam was able to laugh at himself on screen in movies like Support Your Local Sheriff, 1969, and its follow-up, Support Your Local Gunfighter, 1971. These roles brought warmth and fun to the screen. He gained a new group of fans because he could play a lot of different roles. This solidified his reputation as not only a typical cast-heavy, but also a truly talented actor. Their work changed along with the Western theme. In the 1970s, he started to make fun of his own bad guy image in a number of comedy westerns. One of his best-known roles was as a strange doctor in the 1981 movie The Cannonball Run, which also starred Burt Reynolds and Dom DeWitt. A new group of fans liked him because he was funny when he made fun of himself and his bad reputation. Elam also had many guest parts on classic TV shows like Gunsmoke, Bonanza, The Twilight Zone, Have Gun, Will Travel, and The Rifleman. This solidified his place as a mainstay of American entertainment in the 1960s and 1970s. He was in more than 70 movies and over 100 TV shows over the course of his career, and his presence always added something special to any production. Elam made a name for himself in a business where leading men often made character players look less important. He did this by being very talented, having a great screen presence, and being open to the strange and unusual. Even though many of his characters were morally murky or downright bad, they had a strange charm and dark wit that made them stand out, even in groups of big-name actors. Later in life, Elam's services to film were recognized. He was famously inducted into the Hall of Great Western Performers at the National Cowboy and Western Heritage Museum. Even though he never won any big acting awards, there is no denying his impact on the genre and his power to captivate audiences with just a look or a line. He stopped acting in the early 1990s and spent the rest of his life in Oregon with his family, spending time together and thinking about his long and successful career. There were two very important marriages in Jack Elam's life. He was a famous character actor who was best known for his unique look and memorable parts in westerns. he married John Louise Hadgert for the first time in 1937. This marriage was a turning point in Elim's life because it happened during his early years of struggle and desire before he found lasting success in Hollywood. He had a lot of different jobs, from being an accountant to managing a school in Boytown before he became an actor, and Jean was there for him during the tough times. Their marriage lasted for almost 24 years. During that time, Elim slowly made his way into the movie business and started to build a name as a reliable character actor. He was especially known for playing bad guys because of the way his left eye looked after being hurt as a child. On January 24, 1961, Jean Louise Hadgert died of colon cancer, which was very sad. Elim felt a deep personal loss when she died. They had been together for a long time and were steady, and her death left a big hole in his life. Elim's wife got sick and eventually died at a time when his career was taking off. This put him in a tough emotional spot as he tried to balance his business success with his personal grief. Elim was greatly affected by Jean's death, and it took him a while to get back on his emotional feet, according to friends and co-workers. After 7 months, in August 1961, Elim got married again. He married a second time to Margaret M. Jennison, and they stayed together for life until he died many years later. Margaret helped Elim keep his balance by being there for him and being his friend as he became famous in movies and TV shows. Margaret was always there for him, even as his fame grew thanks to memorable parts in movies like Once Upon a Time in the West, Support Your Local Sheriff, and many TV westerns. Even though Jack was becoming more famous as one of Hollywood's most recognizable character players, the couple was known to keep their personal life pretty low-key. Together, Jack and Margaret built a quiet home life away from the fame of Hollywood. They raised their kids and enjoyed some privacy, which Elim had grown to value after years of being in the spotlight. Their marriage lasted more than 40 years, which shows how dedicated and strong they were to each other. Margaret lived longer than Jack, who died in 2003. People who knew the star remember him as a stable person in his life, someone who gave him peace, love, and a long, lasting relationship through the ups and downs of his busy and interesting work. There are a lot of Hollywood heroes, and beneath the glitz and glamour, there have often been feuds and rivalries. Jack Elim had a strong hate, some might even say loathing, for the famous Western star Gary Cooper. This was one of the things that surprised and confused people the most. Elim was famous for his scary eyes, tough personality, and unforgettable roles as bad guys, sidekicks, or strange crooks. But not many people knew that behind the scenes, he was deeply angry at the man who had long abused him. Been looked up to as the perfect cowboy and classic American good guy, Elim was a complicated person who played evil with flair, but was said to be kind and funny off screen. He never held back his opinion on people he thought had wronged him or showed how hypocritical the industry was. And Gary Cooper was at the top of that list for him. The seeds of Elim's hate didn't come from a single event. Instead, they grew slowly over time, shaped by a mix of work frustrations, personal encounters, and clashing ideas. Elim didn't become an actor until after working as an accountant and studio inspector for a while. In fact, he was in charge of keeping an eye on movie costs long before he had his own movie. Gary Cooper was already a big name in Hollywood by the time he started getting parts in the late 1940s and early 1950s. He had made a name for himself in movies like High Noon and Sergeant York. Cooper was praised, and protected by a system that Elim thought was exclusive, shallow, and very unfair to character actors like him. In the beginning, they ran into each other from time to time at studio events or parties. Elim, who doesn't hold back, thought Cooper was distant and too full of himself. Elam respected toughness, improvisation, and the camaraderie of the working-class cast and crew. Cooper, on the other hand, carefully crafted an image of grace and heroism. Elam thought this picture was just a front for what he really saw: coldness and arrogance. According to more than one interview from the 1970s, Elam called Cooper the Prince of Phonies. He thought that Cooper had become famous because of his good looks and well-groomed personality, while he treated lesser-known actors with a coolness that was almost contemptuous. But they were having trouble with more than just ideas and work. Elam often told stories, some of which may have been overstated but others of which were true, about times when Cooper had put him down or ignored him on set or at events. In one story that was told over and over, Elam talked about being on the edge of a production where Cooper refused to listen to a director's advice because it was said while Elam was nearby. Elam thought that this was part of Cooper's unspoken dislike for Hollywood's ugly guys who played supporting roles in westerns but were never on the movie posters. In the 1980s, Elam is said to have said, "He had no room in his world for a man like me." Thoughts were also very different between the two men, unless I was being shot at or dying in the dirt. Elam, who is often portrayed as a bad guy, respected honesty and standing up to unfair systems. He didn't hide anything, didn't believe in atheism, and didn't like the old Hollywood star system, which he thought valued looks over substance. Cooper, on the other hand, was a symbol of the establishment. Studio bosses liked him, and most Americans liked him. In his later years, he became famous for being very conservative. Not only did this bother Elam, it was also risky. He thought Cooper was typical of a generation of actors who pushed old ideas of what it means to be a man and what is right and wrong, often at the cost of the darker truths that Elam and other character actors wanted to explore. By the late 1950s, there was no longer any chance that the two would get along again. Cooper's fame began to fade a bit, and Elam finally got the big parts he had been waiting for, especially in spaghetti westerns and revisionist cowboy stories. Even though Elam never fought directly with Cooper for the role of leading man, his success helped prove his point that Hollywood needed more variety, more rough faces, more real people, and more moral complexity. Elam often laughed when asked in interviews if he had any regrets or people he wished he had worked with. He would say something like, "Well, I'm glad I never had to share a close-up with that stiff Cooper. I might have ruined his halo." Cooper died in 2003. Fans and film critics remember him with affection as a beloved figure in Western film. Every part he played had something funny, dangerous, or human about it. However, his dislike for Gary Cooper stayed one of the more mysterious aspects of his otherwise interesting life. Elam's dislike for Cooper, whether it came from professional rivalry, a clash of egos, or something deeper, is an interesting reminder that Hollywood legends, like the westerns they played, were often defined by moral gray areas, and that even the meanest criminals had their own having a grudge. Jack Elam was a famous American character actor who was best known for playing bad guys and grizzled sidekicks in Western movies and TV shows. He died on October 20, 2003, at the age of 82. His death was caused by congestive heart failure, a long-term condition in which the heart can't pump blood well enough to meet the body's needs. He was getting worse over time, but Elam's health was getting worse in the last few years of his life. His last days were spent in the peace and quiet of his home in Ashland, Oregon. Ashland is a small town in the southern part of the state that is famous for its art scene and natural beauty. In his later years, Elam found peace and comfort in Ashland, which was a far cry from the busyness of Hollywood, where he had spent most of his career. He lived in this house with his wife Margaret Jennison. They had been married since 1961. His life was stable because of their long and loving marriage, and Margaret stayed by his side as his health got worse. Elam was still lively and funny, even though his illness made it hard for him to do some things. He often told visitors and family members stories from his work. Those who knew him well said that he kept the dry sense of humor and friendly personality that made him so remembered on and off the screen even in his last months. For fans of old westerns, Elam's death was the end of an era. He was a mainstay of mid-20th century movies, known for his unique look, which included a wandering eye, worn-down features, and a mean scowl. Elam was often cast as a bad guy, especially when he was younger, but his skill and versatility let him play more comedic and sympathetic parts as he got older. His unique screen presence made him one of the most recognized actors in the genre. Fans, co-workers, and people in the entertainment business all mourned his death. Many actors, directors, and film historians wrote tributes to him after he died. They talked about how important he was to the Western genre and how he could make even small parts memorable. Nearby, people and friends in Ashland knew him not only as a famous actor, but also as a humble and kind man who liked his own space and the little things in life. The many movies and TV shows that Jack Elim starred in will always remember him, even though he is no longer alive. Character actors like Jack Elim will always be remembered for their charm and skill. The way Elim's face was hewn, the way he squinted, and how dedicated he was to every part he played gave him a vivid realism that few actors could match. American movies and TV shows will never be the same without Jack Elim. He scared people as a cold-blooded criminal and made them laugh as a clumsy cowboy with a good heart. As Hollywood's tastes changed, he went from being a feared bad guy to a popular comedic character. This showed how flexible he was as an artist. Some of his performances are still talked about years after he died in 2003. They remind us of how much depth and flavor a great character actor can bring to a story.